Race in the City, Work, Community, and Protest in Cincinnati, 1820 to 1970. Chapter 8, James Hathaway Robinson and the Origins of Professional Social Work in the Black Community. In the early 20th century, an influx of African American migrants from the South to northern cities rapidly expanded urban populations, making already poor conditions in cities worse. Cincinnati was no exception. Longtime Cincinnatians largely reacted to this influx of African Americans with racial discrimination and hostility. Sociologists and social workers were needed to design and introduce programs that would organize communities to meet the changing needs of both newcomers and long-term residents. To accomplish this, assessing job opportunities, housing, health, education, and recreational needs was necessary. It also required addressing prejudicial justice systems and improving race relations in Cincinnati. James Hathaway Robinson was at the forefront of these efforts. Robinson's academic background and career achievements provide us a clue about his competence and drive. In 1887, in Sharpsburg, Kentucky, Robinson was born to a formerly enslaved man, Nathaniel Robinson, and his wife, Martha Summer Robinson. He attended Fisk University, where in his last year, a social science department devoted to race relations was added to the curriculum. Robinson graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in 1911. He earned a second BA in 1912 from Yale, followed by a master's degree in sociology, also from Yale, in 1914. A fellowship to study sociology and social services at Columbia University from 1914 to 1915 allowed Robinson to complete residency requirements for his PhD. Despite offers from several universities, Robinson moved to Cincinnati in the fall of 1915 to teach sixth grade at Frederick Douglass School and to pursue further research. Exactly what drew him to Cincinnati is unknown, but the city was of interest to nationally recognized Black scholars. Frederick Douglass School, newly built in 1910, was the last all-Black public school in Cincinnati when Robinson arrived, and was touted as one of the finest modern school buildings in the city and the best equipped school for industrial training. It included a kindergarten and faculty of 32 who also taught courses in German, music, writing, art, and physical education. The school functioned in the evenings as a community center for sports, a branch of the public library, offered academic and industrial courses, and provided space for neighborhood clubs. Douglass School and its faculty were closely tied to the history of Cincinnati and the development of African American community leaders. It was central to Black community leaders who worked to form all Black branches of existing institutions and of the YMCA. It was at Frederick Douglass that James Robinson met and then married Neola Woodson in 1916. The boarding house at 2808 Preston Street in Walnut Hills, where the couple lived, still stands. Later, they purchased a duplex before moving to 853 Beecher Street, a fashionable middle-class address next door to F.M. Russell, the principal of Frederick Douglass School. In 1917, Robinson detoured from academia to policy development and advocacy, taking a position with the Cincinnati Council of Social Agencies to survey Black migration to Cincinnati and study housing conditions of the Black community. He began by founding the Negro Civic Welfare Committee, giving Black people themselves the opportunity to be active participants in formulating plans that would directly impact them. Robinson's real-time study was a Black community effort amassing data that was all tabulated by hand. Robinson enlisted help from Black organizations, businessmen, housekeepers, librarians, 357 public school teachers who conducted 20,000 telephone interviews, paid assistants and volunteers who completed house-to-house investigations, and, quote, every conductor on the 4 southern railroads converging here who kept records for 1 week of the migrants from the South destined for this city, end quote. Ultimately, this survey would prove valuable on a number of counts. It identified problems and facts while serving as a means of teaching about social service work itself. The survey generated citywide interest, was applicable well beyond the city of Cincinnati. Survey sample data and corroborating evidence showed migration was driven by economic needs, the desire for better wages, privileges, living conditions, treatment. High prices with low wages, flooding, lean crop system, and the boll weevil forced many to migrate. From the 59 elementary schools and 2 Black schools, only a small number of Black students graduated. Some students questioned the value of schooling that did not broaden their opportunities. African American migrants were church-going people with much to add to the life of Black community from Robinson's perspective. Some migrants had been property owners in the South with bank accounts, work histories, and came with, quote, recommendations of a high order, end quote. Robinson concluded Cincinnati didn't offer attractive wages like Cleveland, Chicago, and Pittsburgh, and was a gateway rather than a terminus to many migrants. Within a 12-month period, only 4,000 of 30,000 migrants passing through settled here. A separate status relegated African Americans to the most menial of jobs with lower pay. They were barred from hotels, restaurants, soda fountains, parks, movie theaters, and schools. Few schools, hospitals, or clinics allowed African American nurses or doctors to train or practice on their premises. Such handicaps undermined ambition and striving. Black crime rate was reported at 23% in a Black population of only 7%. A prejudicial justice system produced these higher arrest rates and imposed harsher sentences for comparable crimes by whites. The local press, quick to feature perceived weaknesses, foibles, and crimes, failed to cover African Americans' accomplishments, virtues, or contributions. This further fed racial discrimination in the city. But for newcomers, the most pressing problem was housing. With only a few shabby houses in crowded districts, 1/3 of African American newcomers were forced to live with unrelated persons in poor and crowded conditions, and they were charged higher rents. The survey identified problems exacerbated by the population surge since 1910, which shifted Black residents from rural into urban, then industrial environments. Family stress caused by inadequate housing, employment, and education were real. But rather than see these as problems of individuals, Robinson advocated by organizing institutions to serve Blacks as a coherent whole. He stated the need for, quote, self-origination of a group consciousness, end quote. Recognizing geographic dispersion of Black residents made joint action difficult. Racial discrimination was a core problem that Robinson attributed to white people's ignorance of Black life, their aspirations, handicaps, disappointments, and daily conditions. He advocated a campaign to educate whites about African Americans, recommending that culture, history, and achievements of Black Cincinnatians be taught as part of social service agencies' programs. Social service agencies devoted to Black clients were surveyed. 11 such agencies and 8 white agencies with special departments serving Black clients illustrated the lack of centralized leadership. Robinson stated, "There is, quote, no agency at work with executive power and citywide interest, viewpoint, purpose, or propaganda to make effective any remedial recommendations that are made," end quote. In response, he formed a new federation of Black social service agencies seeking development and support from Black-run YMCA and YWCA, the Colored Orphan Asylum, 2 homes for the aged, 2 homes for young women, and the colored departments of the existing 8 white agencies. All of these organizations had active supporters and organizers from Frederick Douglass School faculty. The focus of the new federation was social service planning, instituting efficiency, conducting financial campaigns, addressing civic matters, and centralizing case conferences. Additionally, Robinson created an advisory group of Black doctors, lawyers, ministers, and social workers. Part of Robinson's genius was seeing the need for Blacks to organize and coordinate Black institutions. He created a federation of churches to cooperate in their efforts to provide social services. Robinson set the groundwork for specific programs for African Americans in public health, too. Black nurses and doctors were able to treat West End residents in the new Shoemaker Health and Welfare Center. Recreational programs in athletics, drama, music as well were spawned by his creative vision. Robinson's study results were entitled Revelations of the Cincinnati Negro Survey and were presented to the Cincinnati Council of Social Agencies Board in January 1919. Robinson believed the information's significance applied well beyond Cincinnati, so he shared the outcomes at the National Conference of Social Work in June 1919. His presentation was called The Negro and Local Community. George E. Haynes, the highest-ranking African American in the U.S. Labor Department in 1924, said, quote, "Perhaps the most worked out and best piece of social engineering in race relations in Northern community has been developed during the past 6 years in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the interracial work of the Council of Social Agencies with James H. Robinson as executive secretary. They have coordinated with the Negro churches, fraternal bodies, women's clubs, YMCA, YWCA, and the white social agencies and organizations. The Negro population increased from about 20,000 to 35,000 in 10 years, largely during the 1916 to 1918 migration. These people have been integrated into the city's life through their leaders and organizations to an extent which hardly seemed workable 10 years ago," end quote. The contributions James Hathaway Robinson made to the field of social work are numerous, and his impact on the African American community and the city at large reverberate long after his tenure in the Queen City.